Thank you, Mr. Chair. First, we'll start with roll call. Director Carter.
Here.
Director Skinner.
Here.
Vice Chair Haslam.
Here.
Chair Lawson.
Here.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The next item is invocation.
I'll handle that for you, Mr. Chair. Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this evening, Father. Thank you for the people that work at this utility and the customers we serve. Father, please lead us and guide us throughout this evening and give us wisdom and patience. And Father, please guide us through all things we do throughout the day. In your heavenly name, amen.
Amen.
Mr. Chair, the next item is the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Chair, the next item is the adoption of the agenda.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we adopt the agenda as stated.
Second that?
Public comment? Any other discussion from the board members? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The next item is the approval of minutes.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes of the June 10th and 12th meeting as provided.
Second.
We have a second. Any public comment?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair. I had a cordial conversation with the clerk about the fact that minutes do not reflect the passing of the gavel on June 10th in a very confusing manner, which very difficult to understand. And on the June 12th meeting, you know, you don't really get into the fact that you had an RFP, you tabled it, then you brought it back, and the highest ranked attorneys, they're not interested. And none of that is reflected, and I don't know where the RFP stands. But I think it's really troubling when a big law firm says, you know what, I don't want anything to do with this. That's a canary in a coal mine.
Thank you. I'll ask our attorney, do we need to clarify the previous minutes in your?
I have no problem noting that the gavel was passed so that the maker of the motion could make the motion. I don't have a problem with adding that to the minutes. That's perfectly fine. And of course, our minutes are subject matter and abbreviated.
Thank you.
Sure.
Chuck Ross. In at least two of the meetings, the former chair, Ed Blarski, brought presentations that weren't included in the, weren't on the agenda, and the presentations weren't included in the backup. When is the public going to be able to get, when is that going to be disclosed to the public, the presentation? Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I thought that both presentations were included in the backup. I may need to double check from the former chair at the time, but I appreciate Citizen Ross mentioning that, and I can double check and make sure.
And if not, you'll post them.
Yes.
Thank you.
Not a problem.
Seeing no other comments, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion on adoption of the minutes? All in favor?
Aye.
Fantastic. Thank you, Mr. Chair. The next item is chair comments.
Thank you. So I had a few things I'd like to say. First of all, I'd like to say thank you for the opportunity to serve in this new role. I very much am optimistic, and I will do my best to serve GRU, our customers, and the board. I also want to make sure and acknowledge and thank Tony Cunningham for his many years of service to the board and to GRU. I want to thank all the senior members for all the leadership that you continue to provide day in and day out. I want to thank Mr. Blarski for accepting this new role on very short notice, and I'm very excited about the things that you're going to accomplish. And finally, I also want to thank all those that work at GRU for your professional dedication every day to make sure that we have safe, reliable utility services. I did want to I want to have a follow-up discussion from the last meeting. At the last meeting, we made a motion to make Mr. Bilarski the interim CEO. I would like the board to have a discussion about making him the permanent CEO, and I want to tell you why. First, Mr. Bilarski is a seasoned industry leader. Second, he's proven himself here before. He's proven that he can lead GRU through difficult times. And I'm confident that Mr. Bilarski can continue to serve in this role. I believe that GRU needs a stable leadership during this time. And I also believe that when the time is right, that Mr. Bilarski will help assist us with succession planning for the CEO's role. When I spent time in the previous board, I spoke to an industry research or a recruitment expert, and we discussed it in the past. I don't believe now is the time to be changing out our CEO, and so I'd like the board to have a discussion about that when I finish my comments. And then the final thing, with regard to the format of our board meetings, one of the things I would also like to just have a discussion about is all the board members are spending a tremendous amount of time prior to this meeting, meeting with leadership, studying the content, and I think we all come to this meeting well prepared. I would like to consider reducing the amount of presentations and increasing the amount of discussions of the board members at these meetings. And I'll work with Mr. Bilarski around that. But I don't want to try to speed anything up. I just want to try to give more time for us to have some meaningful dialogue with leadership. And this goes back to what you said, David, us getting to know each other a little better. And so just some thoughts around that. And with that, I'll conclude my comments.
Mr. Chair, I have confidence in Mr. Bilarski, or I would not have done. I wouldn't have made the motion. I know it was abrupt. He didn't even know I was going to do it. Nobody, obviously, he couldn't. Nobody knows going to do that. And I don't disagree with your thoughts that stability is so important at this time. And I would personally have no objection him being named, as long as he's willing. I mean, I'm sort of looking over at him as I'm saying this.
He and I have discussed it.
Okay, I'm assuming you have.
Yes, I'm not surprising him.
Yeah, so
I have no power.
I know you won't surprise people.
So he and I did discuss it.
Okay.
He is willing to serve in this role, not into perpetuity.
Right.
But he is willing to serve in this role at this time.
Would you like to see a motion to that, and then we can have a discussion if it's seconded, sir?
I would.
Mr. Chair, at this time, I'd like to make a motion that we remove interim from Mr. Bilarski's title and make him the permanent CEO, general manager of the utility.
Seconded.
Okay, with a second, I know we were supposed to do public comment for the beginning, but we now have a motion. Any public comment?
Mr. Mayor, I'm Jim Conish. I happen to believe that Article 7 is one of the most exquisite, sophisticated repudiation of a municipal governance paradigm that any human being can formulate. Now, Mr. Bilarski has already sworn to uphold Article 7, but if you look in 7.12, not only are the members bound by the pecuniary interest, best utility practices, in his new role, he's likewise bound with you in every decision he makes. So I would ask that he swear as CEO GM to put 7.12 front and center before he makes any decision about anything. I would be curious to know how much he's being paid, but, it's not a minimum wage job. Thanks.
Debbie Martinez, and I realize that general public comment comes after all of this. That's why I was asking for clarification, but I figured that we were just going to do this first. I support the motion. Thank you.
Chuck Ross. It seems to be, it's becoming a habit to put surprise items on the agenda. No one has any idea that you're thinking of making him the permanent manager. As At the last meeting, I don't think anybody knew that they were going to fire Tony Cunningham and make him, making him the permanent manager, and make Mr. Belarski the interim manager at the time. So I think this is a bad practice, and maybe you want to consider deferring this item. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members. Bobby Murmer, coordinator of the Alachua County Labor Coalition. Mr. Chair, I understand your logic for wanting to remove the interim from GM Belarski's title and make him permanent GM. And I would normally agree that there needs to be some stability here at GRU. But as a matter of fairness, when Mr. Cunningham was GM, and he also was a seasoned utility professional, this authority board put him through the gauntlet, started a national search, and was really unfair to him, but it set a precedent, I believe, that any GM, interim or otherwise, should have to go through the same process, should be subject to a national search, and they can apply like any other applicant. So I'm just asking you, as a matter of fairness, to please hold GM Belarski to the same standards that you held Tony Cunningham to. Thank you.
Yes, Jeffrey Shapiro. I just wish to say that I oppose the motion, and the reasons are myriad, but it's not a surprise that this has happened. As a surprise, of course. But I think that it, first of all, of course, totally disregards public input, public knowledge of what's happening. You are a part of the city, you're a unit of the city as an authority and as GRU. GRU is a part of the city. It remains so until you fully disassociate it, as you seem to want to do, from the city, make it a private enterprise. I suppose that means divest of all these non-profitable aspects of GRU, such as the water treatment, sewage treatment, perhaps gas. It doesn't make that much. And other aspects that we absolutely have necessity of as city residents. These things have not been considered, and it is a revolutionary thing that you're trying to do, which is to divest the city of GRU. I think that it requires due diligence, it requires public engagement. These things are being disregarded, so I oppose the motion. Thank you.
Seeing no more public comment, wait.
Sorry about that. Ernesto Martinez, I want to urge you to pass this motion unanimously. I'll say it again. I urge you to pass this motion unanimously. Thank you.
Comments from the members?
Yeah, I think that Ed being the interim and then being long-term is like the only reasonable solution. I understand that everybody, GRU is connected to the city, but ultimately it is a business. It has to run like a business. We're not going to find anybody better than Ed right now. Is there somebody out there better than Ed? Well, sure, that's the world we live in. There's always someone just a little bit better. And when Ed finds that guy, he doesn't want to admit it. He knows somebody a little bit better than Ed. But when Ed finds that guy, look, Ed's not going to live forever. He's going to replace it. Well, I'm sorry, Ed. I love you, man, but I don't think you're going to live forever. So when Ed finds the right person, Ed's going to mentor that right person, in my opinion, and put him in place. In the meanwhile, we need someone who's going to fix this mess and quit acting like it's, a piggy bank or whatever. So
I would agree. I've known Ed for years, so my time working at the city and his time working at GRU, I think he's more than qualified. Having a succession plan, I think, is huge. I think that's very important. And to address, nobody on this board is looking to sell off gas, to get rid of water, wastewater. That's just not the right frame of mind to even be thinking when you're looking at all of us up here, because that is not what we're tasked for, and that is not one of our goals. We're here to make GRU profitable without breaking the backs of our shareholders out there or our customers, whichever way you want to look at it. So I am in full support of that, with the understanding that Mr. Pilarski will not be in the role permanently, that he will leave eventually, that we won't force him to retire, and that there will be a succession plan in place. I think that's huge.
Mr. Chair, just to address something that was said, we started the idea of a national search. We never went to a national search. We never got that far. Mr. Pilarski actually did come through a national search. He was, selected. The commission I was on, I had confidence in him back down. My confidence is still there. Tony, great man, he was here 22 years, but he actually didn't go through the national search, and he was made permanent. So it's actually reverse of what was said. I just want to clarify that. And I do support the motion, sir.
The thing I would say is from the last motion several weeks ago, I started working with Human Resources Department in cleaning up the employment agreement. The prior employment agreement pointed toward the city council, so now we're cleaning up that language. I'm working with Mr. Pilarski and getting his input. I'm working through the salary and compensation, and then we'll appropriately, after we review it with Folds Walker, we'll appropriately circulate it to the board in that manner. So you'll see that coming at however we need to follow that forward. Seeing no more comment, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, the next item is general public comment.
Mr. Chair, Jim Conish, I've already spoken to you, and you're a very amiable person, very intelligent. I produced a transcript of the June 12th meeting, and I counted the lines. Pilarski, 591, Citizens, 402, Carter, 366, Cunningham, 189, Haslam, 44, Skinner, 36, and Lawson, 6. We need to levelize this. Everyone needs to be heard. Everyone's equal up there. The chair does not possess extraordinary powers, merely runs the meeting and sets the agenda with Mr. Pilarski. I would ask you to ask some questions of your fine legal counsel. Number one, does your letter to the Alachua County Supervisor of Elections asking that the city's ballot referendum to repeal Article 7 of the city's charter constitute an exhaustion of administrative remedies? Was the supervisor given a deadline to respond? Does Folds Walker represent GRU, the GRU authority, or both? Who does Holland and Knight represent in the bond validation proceeding? Who pays Holland and Knight for the bond validation proceeding? Who does Holland and Knight report to? Basically, if this illegal referendum gets on the ballot, your bond rating goes down. If it passes, it goes down even more, and then we don't know who has the keys to the kingdom. I urge you to direct your attorney to file a writ of prohibition in the 8th Judicial Circuit to prevent the supervisor of elections from putting this on the ballot unless it's clearly marked as what it is, a straw ballot. And my understanding is this would not go to Mr. Nee's wife, who's on the circuit court, of course. It would go to a judge that has no connection whatsoever to the city of Gainesville, and it would be a judge that would be ideal to make a good, impartial, honest, legal decision, and to sit here and allow Nee, while we fund him, to wipe the authority and Mr. Pilarski's position off the map would be incredibly irresponsible. Thank you.
Try not to get too depressed over that. But anyway, I'm Debbie Martinez. GRU was a first-class municipal utility for decades, focusing on reliability and affordability until the Gainesville City Commission, while serving as the board of directors of GRU, threw our utility over the financial cliff. In 2005, when Peguine Hanrahan was elected Gainesville mayor, the city commission started running GRU as a self-serving political tool, leaving GRU customers stuck with sky-high GRU bills and GRU sitting on a mountain of unsustainable debt. The good news with Mr. Bilarski now serving as GRU CEO General Manager and the City Commission no longer serving as the Board of Directors of GRU and now having an independent authority serving as the Board of Directors of our utility, GRU customers and GRU employees can now start breathing a sigh of relief. Thank you all so very much.
Chuck Ross. I'm going to raise a concern that I noted. Since Ed Bilarski was appointed as chairperson, he used his power and influence as chair of the authority to persuade the board to terminate Tony Cunningham, the former manager. Ed Bilarski made a motion on June 10th to terminate him, which failed. At the June 12th meeting, Carter made a motion to terminate Tony Cunningham, which was successful. In connection with this motion was a motion to ask Ed Bilarski to resign so he could be appointed as interim manager. The termination of Tony Cunningham directly resulted in Ed Bilarski's appointment as interim manager on June 12th. At the June 10th meeting, at approximately 1 hour and 55 minutes into it, Member Carter indicated he spoke to Ed Bilarski and wanted to know if Ed would be interim manager if Tony blows up. Carter indicated that this discussion took place the night after he was appointed. He further indicated he was aware that Ed had been appointed to the board because he explained how happy he was on the board. Ed Bilarski did not recuse himself from the discussions and the vote to terminate Tony Cunningham. This would lead to a potential direct benefit to Ed Bilarski. And I'll leave it to the public to draw its own conclusions, but I believe this is a possible sunshine violation. Thank you.
Clarification, Mr. Chair.
I'd like to clarify too.
And and you need to listen because it was when I was appointed to the first board, sir. I made that real clear. When I was first appointed to the board, which was the first board, I was appointed chairman. I met with Mr. Bilarski. He was not appointed to this board. I said, if we have a problem and everything blows up and Tony blows up, would you consider interim? That was the first board. I can talk to him all day long, sir. It was not this board.
To clarify, everybody seems to be like going after Ed and so worried about the details. And Ed did this, I did that. I actually made the motion on the 10th, but like everybody who's paying so close attention didn't realize that it was me. Everybody just thought it was Ed. So it's kind of like you want to go after Ed. We can stop that. It doesn't make any sense. Let's move on with the meeting. Let's run this business. Let's quit with the Tony said, Ed said. Let's just go, please.
Teresa Summerall. I'm coming to you guys with a concern about the GRU website. As a person who does not have a computer at home, I'm using a mobile device. Had a great deal of difficulty using Firefox for Android to pay my bill a week and a half ago. Called GRU, asked for customer service, and was told that there was nothing that could be done because your website is outsourced to a vendor who says no Firefox, only Safari and IE and Chrome. Super frustrating. I just wanted to bring to your attention that you have customers who do not have those options as browsers, and web standards dictate that any browser should be able to utilize a website just fine. Using a user agent string swapper, I was able to navigate that site just fine. But if you've got a vendor who is serving the city a website that is restricted to certain big market favorite browsers, that's leaving certain customers out. That's all I came to say.
And if you'll leave your name, we'll ask Mr. Bilarski to have someone follow up with you. But thank you for raising that concern.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The next item, since there's nothing on the consent agenda, is CEO GM comments.
I'll be real short tonight. We have a resolution, or 5 resolutions coming back to the board based on the discussions. I think they're all things that you've seen. It's nothing new for folks here, but I'm going to turn it over, and that's about as short as I can be.
That's all right.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. The next item is attorney comments.
Thank you, Christine. The Only update that I have for you all tonight is I believe that you all saw that the supervisor of elections letter went out. I did not write down all of Mr. Conish's questions about that because I was not able to type that fast. The ones that I can remember, there is no explicit date for them to respond because they are not required to respond. If they don't feel that we've stated a sufficient case, they don't have to give us a response. Are there any other administrative remedies? We are not aware of any other administrative remedies, so we do believe that we have exhausted all of those. To the extent of what are the next steps, we are looking into several avenues, and we'll keep you abreast of anything that we can think of and pursue in terms of keeping the referendum off the ballot for the reasons that we've already talked about. So if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer those, but we are actively pursuing several paths.
Mr. Bielarski and I have had multiple conversations as well as Mr. Walker and I. So we are actively developing different strategies.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. And now we'll be moving on to the next item, which is the resolutions. And please remember, this is roll call required for each one. The first item is 2024-502, a resolution modifying net metering for customer-owned renewable energy. And I'll read the title into the record. A resolution of the Gainesville Regional Utilities Authority, a unit of city government of the City of Gainesville, Florida, pursuant to the power and authority of the authority set forth in the city charter, providing that Gainesville Regional Utilities shall no longer be subject to Chapter 27, Article 2, Section 27 through 37, net metering of the City of Gainesville Code of Ordinances, providing for compensation for renewable energy placed onto the utilities distribution system for newly constructed customer-owned renewable generation systems, providing for the notification to the City Commission of the conflict with existing ordinances, providing a severability clause, providing a repealing clause, and providing an immediate effective date. And this resolution has a recommendation that the GRU authority adopt the proposed resolution.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we adopt Resolution 2024-502A as stated.
I will second.
We had a
Clarification, I saw the A here, and I added it. Is that A part of that resolution? It's capitalized, so.
Part of the title.
Huh?
It's part
so
of the
no
title.
way.
No A. Okay, well, it was capitalized, so I sort of caught it in there, so.
So we have a motion and a second. Public comment?
Mr. Chair, Jim Conish. I do support the motion. And, the people with the solar, they no longer should be subsidized. It's not appropriate. It's cost effective. But here's the whole thing, is with the smart meters, what you're going to be doing is you're going to charge more for electricity during the summer between 6 and 8 p.m. when the solar panels stop producing. So between this and that, you're not going to really be subsidized unless you're completely disconnected from GRU. That's where it's going. That's what you're going to use the smart meters for. You're looking into this. So the public needs to know that we need to build a capacity to meet the demand in the summer between 6 and 8 p.m. And otherwise, we're not using it. So they're going to try to shift the load by making it real expensive to consume electricity between 6 and 8 p.m. So unless you have batteries to store your excess solar, they're going to get you. And I'm sorry, that's the way it should be. That's fair, but that's what's coming. This is just step one. Step two is time of day pricing.
Hi, my name's Alex Hood. I just came up to speak against the resolution. I know y'all kind of already decided this one in April, but I think moving away from the net metering, it doesn't, I know there was a lot of talk in the April meeting about how it's more equitable and it's more fair for the non-solar customers. Unless you're passing on the savings to the non-solar customers, I don't think it makes their situation any better. Like, they're not going to notice, What you are doing is you're clawing it back so you can pay back the Wall Street bankers a little bit faster, which is fine. Like, that's the whole purpose of this board. But I felt like we should have been a little bit more honest in the presentation of that resolution, because there's a lot of talk about how, yeah, it's going to be more fair for the non-solar customers. They're not going to notice this at all. And if any, it's just going to hurt the solar customers, and it's going to increase our reliance on fossil fuels, which maybe y'all don't care about that, but I do. So thank you.
Ernesto Martinez. Ladies and gentlemen, I believe that it is urgent that you adopt this resolution without hesitation. Thank you.
When the city commission maxed out GRU's credit card, $2 billion up in smoke. You gotta do what you gotta do. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, authority members. Bobby Murmer, Coordinator, Alachua County Labor Coalition. I think that, and we think that this staff's recommendation is half right. We definitely believe that you should repeal the resolution from April, but leave it at that. People rely on net metering in order to make solar financially viable. Net metering is also good for our local green economy. These are really good paying jobs at the solar companies. So many of these employees are also GRU customers, which according to Article 7, they need to be looked after as well. So thank you.
Seeing no other public comment, back to the board. Any comments?
I appreciate the work that the previous board put in on this item. It was pretty straightforward to understand, and I have neighbors that have solar, and they said, you know, they think it's a good idea, and I also have neighbors that have solar that thinks it's a bad idea. So there really is a mix out there. But I think it is necessary for us to really look at that and not be subsidizing those that do have the means to do that, because it is an upfront cost regardless of which way you look at it.
Any other comments? Roll call?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes. Roll call. Director Carter.
Yes.
Director Skinner.
Yes.
Vice Chair Haslam.
Yes.
Chair Lawson.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The resolution passes unanimously. Mr. Chair, the next item is item 2024-504, a resolution adopting an advanced metering infrastructure opt-out program. And I will read the title into the record. A resolution of the Gainesville Regional Utilities Authority, a unit of city government of the City of Gainesville, Florida, pursuant to the power and authority of the authority set forth in the city charter, providing that Gainesville Regional Utilities shall no longer be subject to Chapter 27, Article 1, Section 27 through 17 of the City of Gainesville Code of Ordinances, providing for the creation of an advanced metering infrastructure opt-out program, providing for the notification to the City Commission of the conflict with existing ordinances, providing a severability clause, providing a repealing clause, and providing an immediate effective date. Outside of the title, the recommendation for the resolution, the GRU authority adopt the proposed resolution.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion we adopt resolution 2024-504 as stated.
Yeah, I would second that.
Public comment? Seeing none, back to the board for discussion. Roll call?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Roll call. Director Carter.
Yes.
Director Skinner.
Yes.
Vice Chair Haslam.
Yes.
Chair Lawson.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The resolution passes unanimously. Mr. Chair, the next item is item number 2024-505, resolution modifying provisions regarding public streetlight and rental outdoor light service. Give me 1 moment to pull up the title. A resolution of the Gainesville Regional Utilities Authority, a unit of city government of the City of Gainesville, Florida, pursuant to the power and authority of the authority set forth in the city charter, providing that Gainesville Regional Utilities shall no longer be subject to Chapter 27, Article 2, Section 27 through 32, availability of public streetlight and rental outdoor light service of the City of Gainesville Code of Ordinances and modifying provisions relating to the same, providing for the notification to the City Commission of the conflict with existing ordinances, providing a severability clause, providing a repealing clause, and providing an immediate effective date. Outside of the title, the recommendation for the resolution is that the GRU Authority adopt the proposed resolution.
I'm waiting for someone else to do it, but I'll go. Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion, we adopt Resolution 2024-505 as stated.
I would second it.
We have a second, public comment.
Mr. Chair, Jim Conish. Due to the private nuisance suits, which creates all the chaos and confusion that makes it difficult for you to operate, I have discovered on my own that the city is not paying the true cost of streetlights, and the city has breached an MOU to pay $1.1 million a year for county streetlights, and that number probably is below cost also. So since you're up against the budget deadline, let's pass this. But we have plenty of time for Mr. Bolarski to sharpen his pencil and go back and see the SLA loss on streetlights, both city and county, which you are required to identify, which you are required to quantify, and which you are required to state on your financial statements and include into the flow of funds. And that is indisputable. And this is not like looking under rocks for a few bucks. This is millions of dollars. And we need to understand that nothing is free. We have the direct transfer. We have millions paid for city services, often without any written agreement. And then on top of that, we have SLA losses, and they're staggering. And this utility cannot afford to hemorrhage tens of millions of dollars into city coffers anymore, and not even included on its financial statements. That's indefensible, and that's going to cause the House of Cards to be under extreme duress. So this is an important matter, and this is just, again, GRU having been turned into a political ATM by the City Commission, and it's just like our springs. They're not infinite. I was in Poe Springs this morning. It's hurting. We take too much out. And the same goes for the coffers of GRU. Too much is coming out. We can't deal with our debts. And yeah, you're not increasing the rate, but how about some cash back? Cash back. Thanks.
Seeing no other public comment, back to the board for discussion. Seeing no discussion, roll call.
Mr. Chair, roll call. Director Carter,
Yes.
Director Skinner,
Yes.
Vice Chair Haslam,
Yes.
Chair Lawson.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The resolution passes unanimously. Mr. Chair, the next item is item 2024-507, Appendix A, Utility Fees, Rates, and Charges for fiscal year 2025. And I will go ahead and read the title into the record. A resolution of the Gainesville Regional Utilities Authority, a unit of city government of the City of Gainesville, Florida, pursuant to the power and authority of the authority set forth in the city charter, providing that Gainesville Regional Utilities shall no longer be subject to portions of Appendix A, Schedule of Fees, Rates, and Charges of the City of Gainesville Code of Ordinances that relate to electricity, water, sewerage, natural gas, and general charges, modifying fees, rates, and charges for electricity, water, sewerage, natural gas, and standard operational charges, providing for a structural revision of street and rental light tables and updated charges associated with lights and poles, providing for the notification to the City Commission of the conflict with existing ordinances, providing a severability clause, providing a repealing clause, and providing an immediate effective date. And this resolution has a recommendation that the GRU Authority adopt the proposed resolution.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to accept Resolution 2024-507 as written.
Second.
Sorry, I was writing my notes.
So we have a motion and a second, public comment.
Mr. Chair, Jim Conish, for many years, I have asked that the stormwater and the garbage fees be unbundled with your, from the electric meter with the high rates and be put on the property owner. That won't work well for people that are catering to the big landlords because they're going to take a big hit. But why should someone that can't afford their bill eat garbage and stormwater that belongs to the landlord? It's unfair. GRU does a terrible job collecting the money. John Power will collect more money for a lower fee as long as you get it going by March. I would ask you to go further and create a lifeline electric rate so someone can have a refrigerator, a fan, and a full lights, no AC, and whatever that costs you, take it out of the SLA losses going into the city commission coffers. So you don't go into poor neighborhoods and see every third and fourth house dark, where kids are in there without no refrigeration, no lights, no fan. Finally, these smart meters are going to be weaponized, and people are going to be disconnected for little or no reason, for sure. And I ask you to have Mr. Bilarski report to you every meeting how many people they involuntarily disconnect over some kind of inability or failure to pay. All they have to do is push a button and disconnect you. They'll ask for a bigger deposit. They'll charge you fees. And I ask anyone to stand, customer service, stand there. Stand there and watch your customers and your staff, the incredible suffering and the humiliation. I come in person to pay my bills on time. I've been disconnected 3 times in the last month or two erroneously. Just totally erroneous. So we have a lot of work to do here. And customer service and accommodating people that cannot afford the rate structure you have in place, which is very regressive, very unfair, very predatory, not good for the city, not good for GRU. That needs to be overhauled. It's simple to do, but we can't have GRU losing a bunch of money on it. Thanks.
Angela Castile. I swore I wasn't going to speak tonight, but after Mr. Conish's comment, I appreciate his comment because it's true. In the poor neighborhoods, you do see quite a bit of people that can't pay their bills and they're shut off. If there was some kind of structure for like a pay-as-you-go, that might even help. But lower rates are better for these people. Thank you.
Seeing no other public comment, back to the board.
Just to the public comment, I know that the discussions I had with the general manager, Bilarski, is these are items that we will be looking at once we get this budget moved forward. So don't think that we're just going to move forward and forget about your comments. The wastewater charges, I had a significant discussion just this morning with Mr. Bilarski on that. So we are looking at that. So don't think this is set in stone. This is just for one fiscal year.
Yeah, to that note, Ed's taking notes about everything that everybody's saying. He's not here just wasting time. Like, he is truly managing and truly professional. We're not going to tell him to address, we will. We'll stay on top of him, but make sure to tell Ed. No, make sure, Ed's going to know. He'll tell us before we tell him, I'm sure. So he's taking care of it. I have the utmost confidence in him.
Okay, seeing no other comments, roll call.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Roll call vote. Director Carter.
Yes.
Director Skinner.
Yes.
Vice Chair Haslam.
Yes.
Chair Lawson.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The resolution passes unanimously. Mr. Chair, the last item on the resolution item is 2024-511, resolution adopting the Gainesville Regional Utilities budget for the fiscal year beginning October 1, 2024 and ending September 30th, 2025. And now I'll read the title into the resolution. A resolution of the Gainesville Regional Utilities Authority, a unit of city government of the City of Gainesville, Florida, pursuant to the power and authority of the authority set forth in the city charter relating to the budget for the City of Gainesville, DBA, Gainesville Regional Utilities, for the fiscal year beginning October 1, 2024 and ending September 30th, 2025, projecting revenues and adopting a budget to pay for personnel services, expenses, operating maintenance expenses, and other expenses for capital outlay and for debt service requirements, authorizing the chairman of the authority to submit the budget to the City of Gainesville and providing an immediate effective date. And the recommendation is that the GRU authority adopt the proposed budget resolution and direct the CEO to submit the budget to the City of Gainesville consistent with the requirements of Chapter 2023-348 Laws of Florida.
Mr. Chair, I would like to make an amendment before anything is done with the actual budget. And I know we cannot direct what City Hall does with the money. I have had some discussions across the way. Fire rescue, police are constantly being battered on the other side of the street. So while we cannot tell them what to do with their money that we are giving them in the GFC, I would like to put a recommendation that we as the authority would like to see that money go to first responders / fire rescue and police. So I would like to make that amendment in there, which I don't know what this does with our time frame. I know we're tight. Yes.
We had that discussion, if I may, Chair. We had that discussion, and I think that it would be better served if we put that recommendation in the cover letter that we send to City Hall,
Okay.
as opposed to the resolution, if that's...
Okay, that's acceptable to me.
And point of clarification on something, and maybe I misunderstood. I could have sworn in this resolution it said that we authorized the chair to present it, and then it says we instruct the CEO to present it. If I'm not mistaken, it sounded like we had two people doing it. Can you clarify
Mr.
that,
Chair,
please?
yes, would you like me to reread the recommendation for clear?
Just that clear,
Yes.
maybe I misunderstood something, I apologize.
It says to direct the CEO to submit the budget to the City of Gainesville consistent with the requirements of Chapter 2023-348.
But up in the resolution, I think it says,
Oh.
instruct the chairman. So
apologize.
I
Yes.
just saw a conflict there, and I think we need to be consistent if I'm not mistaken.
In the title, yes, Mr. Chair, it does say, let me find the exact language.
So it could be taken two different ways, and that's my concern.
It's, the last part of the title of the resolution is authorizing the chairman of the authority to submit the budget
Right,
to the
so we have
City
two
of
different
Gainesville.
people, so we need to make sure that we're clear on that. Attorney.
If I may. I believe that potentially an appropriate sort of amendment would be the chairman to submit, if he chooses to have the CEO submit
Or
on
his
his behalf,
designee.
as his designee.
So chairman or designate.
Correct.
Got it?
Yep.
You want a motion?
Okay. I would like to make a motion to pass Resolution 2024-511 as written.
Amended.
Amended
Amended.
with the chairperson making it or his designee presenting it to the city commission.
Perfect.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, public comment.
Mr. Chair, Jim Conish. The city claims that you're finding, Mr. Belarski's finding of a $68 million negative transfer between 18 and 23. They claim that they actually left GRU 5.9 million. So their number is $73 million off for Mr. Belarski. Of course, they have no credibility, but I just want to point that out to you. First, Ed proposed that we would have no transfer for 4.5 years. Then he came into Mr. Carter's suggestion that we take the $68 million that we borrowed and we're paying interest on, and we're going to let it be paid back in 10 years with no interest. And that, of course, does not make us whole. They get more than 100%. That's an awfully big compromise. Then when you look at all the SLA losses, what about the $3 million this year? Are we pausing the GSC to recover that, which was proposed by the previous board? And like, we're just looking at one thing, the losses over the last 5 years. How about the losses in this year that never should have been there in the first place and that are not in your financial statements? Let me read you from Baker Tilly Audit Financial Report for 23 that you haven't really openly considered. It's 518 pages. The rating agencies, investors, and trustees rely on GRU's financial statement for review and analysis. Well, you can't rely on the statements. On page 73 of 518, there were misstatements found by Baker Tilly, and they're not identified at all. No mention of the Auditor General's report, no mention of SLA losses, nothing. GRUCOM is a poster child. It loses millions. In 23, it paid a 1.2 million GSC. It's losing millions, and the city doesn't pay for certain internet services. Now, does that make any sense? And the losses are projected for next year are even greater. And who's GRUCOM serve? City, county, school board. City doesn't pay enough, or they don't pay at all. Then they take 1.2 million from a business that's losing millions. Does everyone understand that? Does everyone understand that that's not sustainable? The depreciation on the biomass plant is much greater than the amortization of the associated debt. How about that? That's a big problem. When your plants retire and you can't afford to build new ones, the decommissioning costs have to be expensed in that year. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, authority members, Bobby Murmer, coordinator of the Alachua County Labor Coalition. I would strongly urge the authority to please reconsider the $6.5 million cut to the GSC. There is some debate as to whether or not the $68.5 million number is actually accurate. It does seem, to me at least, that to reach the $68.5 million, I guess in the red number, you have to engage in some spectacular accounting aerobatics. But you know, I appreciate the idea of asking the City Commission to maybe dedicate the government services contribution to police and fire. I would point out that might receive a better reception if it were not to be coupled with a cut to the GSC of $6.5 million. Keep in mind that in the current fiscal year, I believe, as a percentage of revenue, the current GSC is about 3%. And if this were a private utility being ran by like a business, as you all keep repeating you want to do, you'd likely be paying 6 to 6.5% of your revenue in franchise fees. So already getting a great deal for the business of GRU. I don't really think there's any need to nickel and dime the city. This money isn't just being spent wantonly by the city. This funds jobs, it funds benefits, which keeps money in our economy, our local economy. So please reconsider this draconian cut. Thank you.
Good evening, Steve Arvell, I'm Director of the Office of Management and Budget for the City of Gainesville. I am a customer and I am a taxpayer, so I fill many roles for sitting up here. First, I want you all to understand that I understand and respect the authority's position and decision to reduce the transfer. I still think the basis for that reduction is incorrect. However, we all see what we see depending on where we stand. And I want to correct something that was just said. Not once, when I presented the flow of funds to either you or the City Commission, did I say that Mr. Wrolarski's $68 million was wrong. And you can go and look. I specifically said his number is as defensible as mine. Two things can be true at the same time. My perspective and Mr. Wrolarski's conception can both be debatable and defensible, and doesn't make either of them right or wrong. And that was the point of bringing up flow of funds. With respect to public safety, and I'm going to say this with absolute authority, that I probably have a little bit better idea of the percentage and the amount of general fund dollars that will go to public safety in 2025. It is approximately $75 million. Okay? So I would say a significant portion of that government service charge or transfer is going to support public safety. All right? And I don't know that I would say they've been beat up by management, because I'm also a member of those bargaining teams. Fire had an unprecedented contract that is finishing up the year that included a shift change that is reducing the number of days they have to work by 30 every year. Okay? We are in the process of negotiating with FOP. They are not going to get beat up. We will come to something that both of us agree to, because that's the essence of a good faith negotiation and bargaining. So I hope I've cleared those two things up. Like I said, it was my point about flow of funds was a different perspective. I never once said I was right. I've said it's my perspective. And I don't think it's a poor perspective. If you're not convinced, I would suggest you guys go on the landing page for the GRU Authority meeting tonight. There's a notice of budget hearing. The very next attachment is a flow of funds. It is the budgetary basis that you are going to approve. That seems a bit silly now, doesn't it? Thank you.
Chuck Ross again. First of all, the 68 million, I actually handed out to all of you a analysis, and it clearly shows that there's $34 million that was disregarded in the computation. So as I said earlier, if you're going to use GAAP financial statements, you can't pick and choose which parts of GAAP that you want to use as a basis for your request or recovery of funds that you allege are due from past losses. I also, I happen to support what Mr. Marvell just said, in that the flow of funds seems a better way to look at things in the governmental arena. GAAP statements, as has been mentioned about depreciation expense, for example, don't necessarily reflect the replacement cost of the equipment. Could be higher, could be lower. But the flow of funds recognizes how much cash, the cash usage basically, the cash balances. So anyway, I suggest I would appreciate if you would look at the analysis that I did, which is based on the generally accepted accounting principles, the CAFRs that were prepared. And if you look on the bottom, I've tied in the equity section, which is the fund balances, for every single year. And you'll see that the difference was approximately 34 million, not 68 million. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other public comment, back to the board.
Just a question. what is industry standard as they talk about flow of funds and gap? What is industry standard for municipal utility?
Flow of funds is kind of a nuanced debt covenant calculation that frankly is not the gold standard that you're looking for. You always make decisions off net earnings because you look at what useful life you're losing through depreciation. It becomes an economic analysis. And I think what folks are missing in this, and I agree with Mr. Varvel, we can have different opinions, but they're missing GRU's ability to need to replenish those assets. It's an economic calculation. It shouldn't be a cash calculation. You can have cash available, but it doesn't mean you need to disperse it to your shareholders. That's why, you know, corporations, other businesses look at their net earnings and they look at their dividends as a percent of net earnings. So that's really the gold standard, and that's what's we base it on.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, no, I mean, a company that's been forced a lot of times to make so many bad deals, and it's 1.8 right now, 1.7 in debt.
Yeah, we have 1.8 billion in debt.
1.8 million in debt. To just keep giving money away, I know I'm offending a lot of you, but to keep giving money away is just, that's offensive. Let's pay back the debt so my newborn granddaughter isn't paying it for us. That's what makes sense. And if it was up to me, because I've already stated it publicly, but I'll state it again, there'd be no general transfer fund, but I compromised. So if it was up to me, we wouldn't be having this conversation at all, because it wouldn't even be on the table, but.
So if I could, we keep referencing the principal, but there's interest due.
Oh, no, I'm sure it's
So
bigger than
over
$1.8
$3
billion.
billion.
Yeah, no, we're gonna use whatever number is convenient for everybody. It seems that's what they want to do. That's the emails and stuff we get. Let's tell this lie and let's make up that number, but we know it's true.
So, and what I would say is, first, I want to thank the senior leaders for working so hard to prepare a budget and then shifting materially near the end to really get it across the finish line. Just amazing work, very complicated budget, and so just a fantastic job there. And recognizing that this board had a very short time frame to get the budget passed. And I would also say, we know we have a lot more work to do, and this budget is not going to hold us to the additional work that we have to do. So we're just meeting the obligation of the law that we have to meet, but we know we're still going to do a lot more work. So with that, a roll call.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Roll call, Director Carter.
Yes.
Director Skinner.
Yes.
Vice Chair Haslam.
Yes.
Chair Lawson.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The resolution passes unanimously. Mr. Chair, the next item is director comment.
That's me.
You are now the director, yes, sir.
I would just like to say thank you again for the opportunity to serve in this role, and I look forward to working with our board members and with our new CEO and their team going forward. I have no other items. Any other comments?
Nope. No, I got another meeting to go to.
And with that, we're adjourned. Thank you.